UK, you would never hear someone say, I'm just popping to the supermarket to buy some milk, eggs, a shotgun, and a knife. But swap it around, and in the UK, you wouldn't have to drive to 3 different stores to buy a loaf of bread, a pack of cigarettes, and a bottle of wine. So, today we're looking at some of the biggest and honestly most surprising differences between UK supermarkets and US grocery stores. And we'll even dip into a bit of history because it's pretty interesting how Britain actually sent people over to America to study early US grocery stores before opening their own. Now, at this point, it goes without saying that basically everything in America is bigger than it is in the UK. So we're not going to talk about the size or the variety of food. Just trust me when I say it's bigger and there's much more choice here in the US. Now, as a standard rule in the UK, you have to pay for a plastic bag at the supermarket, whereas in America, it varies between states, cities, and even towns. So let's take a look at the state of Pennsylvania. In the city of Pittsburgh, there is a ban on plastic bags and you have to pay for a paper bag. Whereas in the town I live in central Pennsylvania, there is no ban and there is no charge. And that is the standard theme for this country. Depending on where you are, the rules change. Unlike the UK, where things are pretty standard, which takes us to the first big difference. In the 17 control states, so the states where the government controls the sale and distribution of alcohol, you won't typically be able to buy alcohol at your grocery store. You would have to drive to a state-owned or designated liquor store. And I say typically because it varies a lot. Grocery stores are generally not allowed to sell spirits, but many of these control states do allow grocery stores to sell beer and in some cases wine. But it's not just the control states. Some grocery stores can't sell hard liquor for a number of reasons, including licensing laws and local laws. There are also counties that need to vote to authorize the sale of alcohol as a whole, so not just in the grocery stores. Now, this is unheard of in the UK. I've never been to a supermarket that doesn't sell alcohol. Even the tiny little express stores have a little section for it. So the spirits will be kept behind the counter and there'll be a nice big section of beer and wine. But the interesting thing is, it hasn't always been this way. Before the mid-1960s, the UK actually looked a lot more like some US states do today. Alcohol wasn't something that you just picked up with your weekly food shop. Alcohol was mainly sold in pubs and small off-licenses, so they were little dedicated shops just for alcohol. Then the Licensing Act 1961 made it much easier for supermarkets to apply for alcohol licenses. And honestly, many supermarkets didn't even rush to get them at first. Today, alcohol is widely available in supermarkets across the country, but we still do have our traditional off-licenses as well. And cigarettes in the US work a little differently too. Their sale isn't tied to the alcohol control system, but they're still heavily regulated, and rules change again from state to state. In some places, grocery stores can sell them, while in others you'll need to go to a separate tobacco shop because local tobacco laws don't allow grocery stores to sell them at all. In the UK, it is much, much simpler. Apart from a few exceptions like Lidl and Aldi, cigarettes are almost always sold behind the counter in our supermarkets. Historically, they were sold through tobacconist shops, but today you can buy them in most supermarkets. You just won't see them on display. In the UK, we have a full cigarette display ban that took effect in 2015. And this means that by law, tobacco products have to be kept behind those plain white shutters at the tills. So, in the UK, if you want to buy bread, beer, cigarettes, and a bottle of gin, it would be a strange shopping list, but you could buy it all at the supermarket. In some states in America, you would have to drive to 3 or 4 different stores. But if you want to buy a certain type of firearm or a knife in America, you could absolutely grab that with your weekly food shop. again depending on the state and the store, and all of this ties into the Second Amendment. In the UK, it is absolutely unheard of to buy firearms and even knives in our supermarkets. We can, of course, buy kitchen knives, but the type of knives like hunting knives you see in some US grocery stores definitely won't be seen in any UK stores. And then there are, of course, lots of smaller differences too. Like in the UK, it's pretty standard to have to put a pound coin in the trolley to encourage you to return it, whereas in the US, it is far less common. I think people are less likely to walk home with the cart here like they do in the UK. It is normally a little bit further to walk, but it's not just theft, of course. It just encourages people to put them back. And then there's the bag packing. In the UK, it is practically unheard of to get your bags packed for you anymore, whereas in the US, it is much more common. But let's take a look at the history. So Britain's journey to adopting supermarkets happened gradually throughout the 20th century and was shaped by major global events. Before World War II, British high streets were lined with small independent stores and shops, with many specialising in one thing. For example, family butchers, local greengrocers with seasonal fruit and vegetables, and a number of small grocers that provided a very personal face-to-face experience. When wartime rationing was introduced, families had to register for ration books, so this entitled them to weekly allowances of essential foods. This system removed much of the social, flexible style of shopping that people were so used to. Food distribution became strictly controlled, and shops could only accept coupons to ensure fair access to everybody. It wasn't until 1948 that Britain opened its first major permanent self-service store. This is the date most widely cited as the real beginning of supermarket-style shopping in the UK. There had been a few small early experiments with self-service in the 1920s and 30s, but it was the post-war period that truly kick-started the shift. Through the 1960s, the concept became far more popular as demand for convenience foods grew and supermarkets expanded their ranges to include packaged goods and even non-food products. And as more women entered the workforce in substantial numbers, foods like pre-sliced white bread really took off and became common in most households. Sliced bread technically existed long before, but the Chorleywood bread process, developed in the early 1960s, completely transformed how Britain made and consumed bread. It used high-speed mixing to create soft, cheap, fluffy loaves, even with lower quality wheat, and it turned packaged white bread into a supermarket staple almost overnight. People even joked that it was the greatest invention since sliced bread. Literally. And then by the 1980s and 90s, the UK had begun rolling out the large out-of-town superstores that we recognise today. The US, however, was far ahead of the rest of the world. While several companies emerged around the same time, the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, founded in 1859, is widely considered the first major chain grocery retailer. But the real breakthrough came in the early 20th century with the first self-service grocery store, a concept most famously credited to Clarence Saunders. His first Piggly Wiggly opened in Memphis, Tennessee in 1916, and it offered a faster and cheaper way to shop. The idea spread quickly across the US. The original store has since closed, but I'll definitely be adding its historic site to my American to-do list. And it's these American stores that drew international attention. Managers from the British cooperative movement visited Piggly Wiggly locations in the 1940s to study the concept firsthand. And that research directly influenced Britain's shift to self-service shopping, paving the way for the first major UK store in 1948 and everything that followed. So let me know in the comments if there are any other differences that you have either heard of or seen personally. And thank you for watching, and a big thank you to my channel members. I will see you in the next one.